Welcome to the Let's Get Entrepreneurial podcast, your go-to resource for navigating the world of entrepreneurship. In today's episode, we're putting the spotlight on customer service, an essential component of any successful business.
Our podcast addresses tools and concepts that are useful for the launch and growth of entrepreneurial ventures. Your two hosts will be Professor Gary Palin and serial entrepreneur Ryan Budden.
Hello, Ryan. How are you doing today?
Brilliantly. What about you?
Oh, having a good day. Busy as always.
Yeah, I'm slammed.
Well, let's get into it. I was recently on an airplane sitting in seat 2A, had just boarded, and I got a phone call from American Airlines. And I'm thinking, well, what does American Airlines want with me? I'm on their plane.
Right.
And there was a representative told me that my flight was boarding and he didn't want me to miss the plane. He wanted to let me know that I needed to head to the gate. When I explained to him, well, I'm already sitting in the seat, he told me your boarding pass didn't scan, so we didn't recognize you on the plane. He said, I'm glad you're on the plane. Thank you. And it struck me, that was incredible customer service.
It sure was. Instantaneous customer service.
It blew me away. I've had other issues with American Airlines where the customer service wasn't optimal, but they do some things really well, that being an example of one. And it struck me, we hadn't done a podcast on customer service, and it is such an important aspect of any business.
It really is. I think most people listening will know that. And we're not talking about the base level of customer service. Can you answer the phone when something is tragically wrong? We're talking about above and beyond, holy crap, I'm now a lifelong customer service.
And that's what this particular instance got my attention. And I've been flying American Airlines for many, many years, but I was blown away. I was thinking in that lines because it seems to me, this is more from an observational perspective, but it seems customer service keeps getting worse and worse in companies today. Let's assume that's the truth. If you give a very high level of customer service, that is a great point of differentiation.
It is. And I think startups have a unique situation in which they can maximize that customer service because they have a small amount of customers when they're first starting. So they, from a time perspective, can afford to give each customer more time than a large company with a much more mature customer base.
So in effect, you're trying to create that wow factor for your customers so that they will remember you, and you develop repeat customers as one component to that. You're also developing customer loyalty, customer satisfaction immediately, which ultimately increases revenue, which is really what you're trying to do.
Yeah. And a lot in early adoption, you talk about the concept of people becoming your ambassador. They like the product so much early on that they're actually doing some of this marketing for you and bringing it to their friends, their network, their community.
They can, in effect, become champions of your business.
That's exactly right. That's a really good way of putting it.
How do we go about this? If you're starting a business, it's easy to say we're going to give great customer service, but how do you go about it?
I think methodically. A lot of businesses that I talk to, that's a pivotal point. We're going to give excellent customer service. We're going to wow people. But when you actually dive down and how are you going to do that? They have these big lines on, we're going to create this community. We're going to create a branding strategy so they feel connected to us. But they don't actually have a system in place to carry it out day to day, week to week, month to month. And I think that's the key point.
So it's not consistent, it's sporadic.
Right.
The first thing I always look at is I like to determine what are the customer's expectations? What's the baseline? So now I know what to aim to go much above that.
That's a great way of putting it. And I think an easy way of doing that is looking at people that are doing it fantastically, like American Airlines in this instance.
Yes. And we've spoken in the past about the measurement of issues. So you can set up performance metrics and goals pertaining to extremely high levels of customer service.
KPIs can be applied all across the business, and we have an entire podcast talking about how that can be done. KPIs can be customer satisfaction. How many touch points does it take for them to get to the right person? How quickly are they being responded to, and what's their level of satisfaction afterwards?
One of the areas that I think is critical with this, and it's part of developing an entrepreneurial culture, is building a customer-centric culture. The first aspect of that is you have to hire and train your staff with a customer service mindset. It starts with an attitude of who you're bringing onto your team.
It absolutely does. A lot of the things we talk about could be brought back to who are you bringing on your team and how are you training them up?
And in this case, also, how are you rewarding them? So are you providing a supportive and positive work environment so you're recognizing extremely high levels of customer service, or are you merely patting them on the head and saying, good job?
Which happens a lot. Yesterday, when we were talking about this podcast and the idea, you had a really great example of rewarding that customer service.
I spoke with a gentleman one time, and he had a really interesting idea. He had a shock the customer competition every month. He was looking for his employees to really surprise the heck out of his customers with high level customer service. And what he did is whoever had the best story or a customer reporting back the best story of exceptional wow factor customer service, he would award that person $100 bill. And I asked him, why did you have an actual bill? He said, oh, when you hold that $100 in your hand between your fingertips, he goes, it means so much more than getting it in your paycheck.
Yeah, they probably put that towards fun income instead of adding it into what are their monthly bills. So it's probably a little bit higher impact for the employee as well.
Now, I did ask him, what does your accountant think of that? And he said, I had to explain to my accountant, he had to figure out how to make it work because I believe they had to add withholding after the fact in some capacity. And I think he ate the withholding and paid it himself.
My mind hadn't even gone there yet, but yes, finance people are the backbone of the business.
He told me his accountant was not happy at all. His word is, yeah, you get $100 bonus and you end up with $92.35 in your paycheck. He says that didn't have the impact.
Right. But the point is, he's going above and beyond at recognizing these stories. So not only does the employee that's getting the $100 bill feel rewarded and excited about that, but everybody else in the company just got a really great example of what exceptional customer service looks like. So something that they can emulate in their next iterations of that experience.
He told me that it became a competition.
Oh, I'm sure it did very quickly.
There was some trash talking going on who was going to win the next one.
And that changes the culture. That makes people focused on customer service. Another big component of this that we've talked about quite extensively during different podcasts is creating a customer feedback loop. So making sure that you're constantly checking in with the customer and making sure your product is best aligned at solving the goal of why they're a customer in the first place. This exceptional customer service is taking into account what they're saying, how they're saying it, at what frequency they're saying it, so you can prioritize exactly getting the best things done to impact the majority of your customers.
And with technology available to business today, you can do this fairly seamlessly. But I would add, use technology, but I would also add, talk to your customers. Don't just rely exclusively on technology.
Yeah, you quickly mentioned at the beginning of this that you feel customer service as a whole is down-ticking. Well, I don't know whether that's true empirically or not, but I definitely get the same feeling as you do. And I feel like a big part of that is because companies are relying more heavily on technology. So you either have to go through this fairly complex ticketing system to lodge a ticket that then goes somewhere, and you might get an email follow-up that you've submitted a ticket, or the dreaded you call a phone number and you play the number game for the next 30 minutes before you get connected to the right customer service representative, which is inevitably not the right customer service representative.
Yeah, those phone banks from hell where you're just looping to the next push a number is the antithesis of good customer service.
Right. And I understand that they do have their place and that they are actually trying to route you to the right person, but man, it's demeaning. You just feel like it's a personal affront on the fifth number that you've clicked. Just let me talk to somebody. And I think that's a pretty universal experience.
Yes, I'm continually speaking very slowly into the phone. Representative.
Exactly right.
I saw another interesting example of a company implementing within their staff customer services. They use gamification. They awarded points and badges for exceptional customer service, and then had expenditures or points that someone could use towards purchasing something personally for themselves.
I like that. My friend worked for Delta Airlines as a flight attendant, and they had a similar award system for exceptional customer service. in first class and business class, you could issue points towards hostess or a host. And those points then went into some sort of a paycheck bonus for them.
It gives the employees a reason to do this outside of, I hate to say just being a team player, because that's not a just statement, but beyond being a team player, not everyone has that natural attitude. So you're incentivizing your employees to give great customer service. And again, we mentioned the benefits of that. Also, the downside of that is you want to reduce customer churn, because that's very expensive. I forget what the data points are, but it's definitely more expensive to secure a new customer than to retain an old customer.
Oh, that's for sure. I also don't know the exact metrics on that, but it's much more expensive.
And also, you want to implement problem solving and complaint handling within that, because that's a pivot point to turn an unhappy customer into a wow factor customer by how you handle that situation.
Right. Yelp puts out a lot of research every year on reviews. And essentially every year what they put out, the bottom line is reviews typically are very negative. Someone motivated enough to get in contact with you is probably angry about something. So it really highlights what you've just said. If you can focus on turning negative into positive, that's your main interaction. So if you can do that effectively over and over again, it's your biggest opportunity to get your main interaction into a positive outcome.
One of the techniques that I've used for years regarding when a customer is complaining, I will ask the customer, what would be the optimal resolution to the situation? In other words, what do you want? 9 times out of 10, they ask for less than I would have voluntarily given to them.
Yep. Anyone that's interacted with Wayfair returns has seen this happen very well. They very quickly ask you, what do you want as your outcome? And I love it because most of the time it is probably well within their means to make you happy before you've left that conversation.
Yeah, and you walk away happy. And 9 times out of 10, that's been my experience. And the 1 time out of 10, I didn't promise to do what they asked. I just asked what they would like. Then you make a decision. Do I want to bite the bullet and give them that? If it's totally unreasonable, can we negotiate, offer alternatives? But you've got 90% out of the way.
I love it.
Those are just some of the overarching issues I see with customer service, but I would highly encourage someone to definitely think about what their customers' expectations are. What is their training in rewarding within their staff? And how are they going to measure that to make sure they're achieving those results?
The last thing I'll say is think creatively. Look at what people are doing really well and see how you can improve on that.
Definitely. I want to thank our listeners for joining us, and I would love to hear any exploration or examples of customer service with a wow factor that they've experienced.
Absolutely. Shoot us a message. Who's blown you away recently?
Yes, it'd be interesting. Until next time, keep learning, growing, and pushing the boundaries of what's possible in your business. Let's get entrepreneurial.
Let's get entrepreneurial.
Thanks for listening to our podcast. As always, you can head over to ProfSpirit.com to check out more resources and courses designed for you, the entrepreneur. Please follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, and others to get the most up-to-date information as it is released.